Alrighty, welcome back guys to another video for Rainbow Six Extraction. Today we're going to be going over one of the larger big bear-like men Russians, and this one is Fuze. I did get one of the very few bundles in this entire game out of the store. I really don't try to spend a whole lot of money on this game. I hardly ever go. But this one actually looked like a really cool bundle. But anyway, we're going to be going over Fuze. Again, like I always state, just so you guys have like a kind of setup on how these videos go and how they're kind of like laid out. For anyone that hasn't watched all the previous ones, I'll be talking about every single detail of this operator and how he's played. And Fuze here is actually unique in one aspect of him, and I'll be going over that. So what we're going to be doing is a loadout for his weaponry. You go through his advancements through level 1 all the way through 10, and every one of them obviously will be giving you an upgrade. With advancements, I'll also be talking about his ability or his gadget and his passive ability. Or he actually has two passive abilities, but I'll be going over that in a little bit. So that's what I mean by him being unique in that sense. So let's go ahead and go with weapons. He already starts off really strong with the 6P41 LMG, 100 round belt magazine. The fire rate is 680, so it's not really fast, but it's not too slow either. Damage is 46, so it does hit like a truck, so it's all around a really solid gun. Shoots slow or slower, so it's way able to control recoil on here, even though it does look like it's a little bit uncontrollable, or a little bit like left and right, more horizontal kind of recoil for the recoil pattern there, but actually in game, it's way better. It is able to support a suppressor, so it is one of the very few LMGs that are able to support suppressors on there. Even with a suppressor, it does a solid 27 damage, so you can run this and still hit pretty hard on a bunch of enemies, so it's not really a bad idea to run it. But normally I don't anyway. For scopes, it does have a pretty wide selection of it, or a pretty decent one anyway. You have the normal Russian reflex sight, or the Cobra's reflex sight, I think is what it's called. You have the Russian holographic scope, the 2.5 times zoom, or the Russian version of that, the Russian version of the red dot, and the 1.5 times scope, which I would either run, or the 2.5 times. So this is actually one of the very few guns that I have a larger scope on. So that's really cool. Again, he only has one grip to it, so it just helps out with recoil. And all around, it's a really solid gun. It just takes forever to reload since it does have a belt-fed magazine. So plan your engagements a little bit smarter than usual, and get ready to, or like really pick your fights when you're fighting a bunch of enemies, because you have 100 rounds, but if you run out of those things, it's going to take a while to reload, and you're going to get yourself in a bit of a mess. Next one down, we have a really solid assault rifle in this game, and this is the AK. The AK-12. It only does a little bit less damage by only 1 point, and that is 45, so it still keeps a solid amount of damage. Shoots faster than the LMG at 850 rounds per minute, at the cost of it having a lower magazine capacity and way better recoil control. So as you can see there, so if you want a longer range version of the LMG and you also want a faster reload, this is it. It only goes up to a 30 round magazine, but it also has still solid damage to it, so it's absolutely worth going to. It's real solid. I would absolutely run this if I would really want to swap off. It's a little bit lighter. The LMG is just good for taking out a bunch of enemies at once. Right now, for like Kick the Anthill special event, this is what I would be running right now, just because it kind of fits better with the mode. But all these guns are really good options. For the entire attachments here, he has the normal suppressor for it. Again, it actually drops down to 27, same as the LMG, and it hits real hard with the suppressor, so it's not a bad idea to run it. You have the muzzle brake for technically a one-shot firing, or single-shot firing, or burst fire. I'm not entirely sure this gun has a burst fire option. Yeah, it doesn't say. Probably it does. I think it only has automatic or single fire, but muzzle brakes help out with single fire and burst firing for this gun, so it works out really well if you want to just fire in small bursts, but usually I just run a compensator on there to get a little bit more more consistent recoil as you have sustained fire with it. For the sights, it has all the Russian reflex sights, exactly the same as the LMG, aside from it having one other scope. Instead of having a 1.5 times, it has a 2 times scope on there, which is kind of weird, but that is what it is. Grips, it is a little bit more flexible in grips. It does have the vertical grip here, or you can also have the angled grip, so you can have faster ADS speed. And that's what I mean, it's more or less like the faster version of all the other assault rifles that you can run. And it hits really hard with a real high rate of fire, so you cannot really go wrong with it at all. It's a real solid pick. And going down to the third one, this is the Sas G12, again, one of the better shotguns in the entire game. Real limited on attachments though, has the normal Russian reflex, Russian red dot, and Russian holographic. It is one of the shotguns that can support a suppressor, but the suppressor does a solid 30 damage, and that's 30 damage per pellet. But keep in mind, this is a semi-automatic shotgun. It does hit really hard at 50 damage per pellet, but you need to be almost point blank range with it. Since it is semi-automatic, they try to balance it out to where it has way less effective damage range. So it hits like a truck, and you can spam it off really good. So in really good situations, you can easily get a large amount of success out of it. But it's not going to be as great for like longer range engagements, obviously, since it's a shotgun. It doesn't shoot slugs, it does shoot buckshot out of this. For the grips, it does have a vertical grip on there. If you want to run this, you can. It is a shotgun, it will kick a pretty good amount every time you fire it, so running a vertical grip on there isn't really a bad idea. But if you want to yank real far down on there, you can. Or on the recoil, you can run angle grips so you can aim down sights faster. I don't really see a bunch of scenarios where I need to aim down sight with a shotgun, since it is shooting buckshot. So I normally just run a vertical foregrip more times, or yeah, most of the time you would be running into situations where the vertical grip would have more use than the actual angle grip. So I recommend just kind of running that attachment on there. And all around, again, like really solid. Hits like a truck, and it's a little bit better in close quarters just because it is semi-automatic and hits that hard. You just have to play a bit closer than usual compared to other like pump action shotguns. They're able to get a little bit more range out of it, but it is slower firing. So really solid. Again, it also has a 10 round magazine, and it goes up to 11 if you count the one already in the gun. So it is similar to Ella's or Zophia's shotgun. And at the very final primary, you got the Spear 308, which in my opinion, it looks like one of the most coolest guns in the game. This gun does shoot, or does hit a little bit less, or has a little bit less damage than the AK-12, and just enough to where it does make an effect on damage when it comes to smaller enemies. Things like an Apex or a Tormentor or anything like that that has a larger health pool. This will affect more. But it doesn't, like it hits less than the actual AK-12, and it shoots slower than the AK at 700 rounds per minute, while the AK-12 is at 850, and it also has a 30 round capacity to it, but it has a way better recoil control. As you can see there, everything is extremely tightly kept together. So if you want a way longer range, kind of harder hitting gun, this thing excels at long range. Like if you really want it to get really good at this thing, like you can run for it. Running a muzzle brake on there is not a bad option at all, especially when you're just doing like small bursts with it. Treat this gun like it is a automatic laser beam, shooting 308 rounds out of it. So even though it doesn't really hit as hard, it is a bit better at higher damage. It's just way better for recoil control for anyone that's not the best at landing their shots. But overall, I'll either run the LMG or the AK-12 over that, so it's really up to you guys. The sights has exactly a little bit, actually a bit of a mix of both the LMG and the AK-12. You have the Russian reflex, the Russian red dot, Russian holographic. You have the 1.5 times zoom, which I normally run. or you can also have the 2x zoom scope on there. So all around, he's really good for actual scopes on his guns, and it's a very odd pick. It's kind of like the what is it
About time
the
someone pulled a
MP5K
square
compared to the FMG9 on smoke. So it has a bit better recoil control, but a little bit less damage, and very similar stats to it. So it's really up to you. It just depends on if you want to land more of your shots more consistently. That's really up to you. Uh, so it's not necessarily the option that I would pick most of the time, but it is absolutely viable in some areas. And for his secondaries, he does have a very select few for secondaries here, but you have the GSH-18, or the Gush-18 is what I like to call it. It's real limited on attachments. You have the suppressor, and you also have the muzzle brake. With the suppressor, it does a solid 26 damage, and with the muzzle brake, it will do 44 damage, which is pretty solid for all handguns. For some reason, the mobility for this gun is knocked down to 45. I'm not really sure what the mobility means in this game. I think that is making it to where that you could run faster, but it's knocked down. So I'm not entirely sure if that's a display bug or what that really means. But it seems to do that for all secondaries. So it's actually really solid. As you can see, with it being a single shot firing weapon, the recoil is already really low, and it has a 18 round magazine capacity, 19 if you count the one in the chamber, and it's overall just kind of meant for more spamming, uh, for a good secondary to take out multiple enemies at once with that larger magazine capacity. And it's, I think in my opinion, a little bit more for actual stealth there. So it's not a bad option at all for a secondary. It doesn't pack a whole lot of punch to it, and normally you want to be running it with a suppressor. So it's pretty in the middle of the road, to be honest. And you also now have the PMM, which is an absolute beast of a secondary. So we'll go over that. Again, has a very similar deal. It only has a muzzle breaker suppressor for an attachment. However, the damage without a suppressor is up to 61 damage per shot. So this thing hits like a truck. Has a real solid 36 damage with a suppressor on, which is, up there with like all other, SMGs to assault rifles kind of deal for a handgun. I don't know about you, but I mean that sounds like a pretty solid secondary right there. I mean, like, you could run this as a weird primary if you really wanted to. But the only real drawback on it is that it has a 8-round magazine capacity, or 9 if you count the one in the chamber. And you can see that the recoil is really high on there, but it is single shot firing weapons, so it is really easy to control the recoil. It's not hard at all, despite it having that weird display. So that is something to keep in mind. Again, it's a really solid gun if you want to more like suppress your weapons, like your LMG or AK, since they do still sustain a pretty good amount of damage with suppressors. You can run the handgun with a with no suppressor on there and keep up to 61 like massive damage to it, and have that as a really good, real hard hitting secondary for you to run. So it's actually really good, and a bit of flexibility when it comes to Fuze. So all around, that's his entire loadout. And let's go ahead and go over his advancements. So he has a 3-speed, 4 armor, so he's not the greatest in every category. He leans more towards being a tank than anything, and he's fairly fast when it comes to speed. He's definitely not the slowest that you can possibly get. So he's I want to say, a bit of a middle of the road for everything. And his ability, or his gadget, is cluster charge. It's that little device that he can put on the walls, so he can put it onto reinforced walls and reinforcements like he does in normal Rainbow Six Siege. But you don't need to worry about that weird kind of like burn that it does through reinforcements before popping out a bunch of little hockey puck explosives. It'll just go straight through. So you don't need to worry about it doing a weird charge up to it. It'll just pop straight out and then start blowing up everything. And it's overall, it's really dang good. It's able to one-shot, or not one-shot, but if an enemy is in the dead center of all those hockey puck explosives, you're able to kill everything. Like, you're able to straight up like use this one of these gadgets to outright kill a Smasher, an Apex, or whatever you need. So for actual explosive and firepower, it is extremely good. His passive ability, he has Gear Up, and it carries one additional React Explosive. So this is what I mean, like he's way more defensive, hard tanking kind of damage and stuff. So he's more in line for a role of defending objectives and such. And also clearing out an objective before even going in, so you don't even need to worry about any enemies. That's why he's running a larger 100 round LMG right off the bat, and his closer charge, so it's really awesome. And he also has a second ability, which even reinforces the whole idea of him being the go-to for reinforcing objectives and setting all this kind of stuff up. So we go ahead and go to his advancements. I have him on prestige, so we'll go over there. Uh, Obviously, you can see the closer charge. I'll show here. Place it onto a wall. Pops it out a bunch of grenades. And it'll obliterate any enemies that's in the area. So we'll just outright obliterate them, so you don't need to worry about that. Reinforcement. So this is the one that is really good, and this is what I mean by him being more for actually securing objectives. So if you really want to use as little time as possible setting up objectives, this guy is a good one to run. So reinforcements, and oh yeah, and he's also the only one that I actually found that actually has this passive ability right here, or the reinforcements passive ability. So right now he's unique in this sense. Reinforcements and barricades are deployed 35% faster, and cluster charge deployment speed increased by 15%. So all that means is that he's able to put up reinforcements 35% faster, and also barricade doors or windows faster by 35%. And him just going through the animation of placing his cluster charge on the wall is 15% faster. Arsenal update, he gets the PMM and the AK-12, and he gets the Armor 4 upgrade on level 4. Gear up, he's able to carry one extra React Explosive, so more for defending. Arsenal update, he gets the Sas G12 shotgun. And amped up, you now can carry, or charge count increases to 4 of them at a time, and grenade count increases 7, and they are released faster. So what that means is that you get 4 of these closer charges that you get to carry around, and the actual grenades that pop out, I think it's about 4 or 5 right off the bat, or by default. So now it's increased to 7, and this will make it to where that you're able to knock out just about everything in the actual match, or able to one-shot smashers or apexes, and they are released faster, so they pop out like one at a time, like extremely fast. So you hit them and like hit enemies with all that kind of damage in a very short window. So all around, it just makes it to where he sounds and is a little bit more aggressive when it comes to clearing out objectives again, wasting as little time as possible clearing out an objective. And at level 8, he gets a movement speed increase by 25%, giving him the speed 3. Arsenal update, he has the Spear 308 assault rifle. And level 10 is cluster refill, so his one charge is replenished every 60 seconds. So he also does fall under the line of operators that does have a rechargeable skill. It just takes a little bit of time to get, so you don't necessarily need ability recharge refills anywhere. So you can probably say that for like operators like Doc or anyone else that doesn't have a rechargeable ability. So that's also another thing that he really has. So all around, he has a bunch of stuff going for him. He has a real solid loadout, really hard hitting in all categories, and is extremely good when it comes to setting up sites and helping people out when it comes to that. So what would I run for is React gear. So obviously you want to play towards his strengths. Running any kind of defenses that you could possibly get, either like an auto turret if you want to, or running a grenade, or like the claymores, arc mines. You can run arc mines if you want to, so he does carry that one extra explosive equipment. So instead of carrying the normal 2 arc mines, you'll carry the what would be standard 3, like you would carry for a claymore. So you will have that with him going, so you're able to really run anything and don't worry about the limitations of the actual starting amount that you have. So all around, actually having any of these would be a really good idea. But normally I'll just run claymores. So you get to carry in 4 claymores if you do that. And I find more uses with the standard one than it is with the actual arc mines, even though they look and sound cooler when you set it up. But you can run that if you want to. Right now, I just have impact grenades on here because I was running Kick the Anthill, and impact grenades work really well when it comes to hitting all that stuff. So it's wherever you would really want it to. So normally, I'll just run claymores on there. And gear, run auto turrets. If you want to run body armor or anything to make it to where he's more tanky, you can. Or if you want to run explosive harness, you can carry up to 7. Yeah, you'll be able to carry up to 7 claymores by default coming into a match. So, I mean, you'd be strapped with explosives on you. So, it's not a really bad option at all. So, really, you can do whatever you'd really want with him. And all around, he is a really solid operator. That's why I have him on to Prestige 1 already. You know, meanwhile, Gridlock is already on Prestige 2. But yeah, he's a pretty solid operator all around. Again, he's really unique when it comes to that recharge ability. And let's see if we're able to actually get a match where he has a bit of a defensive areas here. If not, you know, I can just easily use it on a bunch of enemies. You can kind of see it go off at, or what it would be like at max level. Okay, yeah, so we didn't get any kind of defenses here, but we did get decontamination, so you get to see a pretty good work with this gadget here. Sprawl overflow, that's one of my least favorite.
Chaos is only an enemy if you're unable to adapt.
But again, his loadout is really great. The spear is kind of weird. Like, again, if you just don't want to deal with a bunch of bouncy recoil, run that if you want to. It still hits fairly hard. I mean, you can't really go wrong with it necessarily. But if you are doing Kick the Anthill, like, everyone already knows that Fuze is the best for this because, you know, you're able just to pop in a Fuze grenade and start blowing up all the nests inside. But if you carry impacts with you and you carry the explosive harness, since he already has extra explosive equipment where he's able to carry one extra one in, he has up to 8 by default.
R&D needs a living, breathing arcane of
So
a special
it's
kind.
really
Locate the
solid right
target.
there. And while I'm making these operator videos, guys, I will also be starting up a new kind of setup for any kind of details over the game, and this is going to be mostly going over like a little bit of hidden tricks or tips and tricks for you guys while we're going through. I kind of gave out a couple of them while I'm doing this series, but I'll go ahead and make a dedicated version to it, or dedicated series to it. And it'll be a bunch of details that you guys might find really interesting and good to know. Why do you already seem alerted?
I'm reloading.
Shoot him in the legs or in the lower body, and you'll be able to kill him outright. You can drop it like that. You know, I can probably use these guys as mines later on, so that's a pretty good deal to know.
Your objective can't be far. Try a recon tool if you've got one.
I know, Ash. If I can turn off notifications or them telling me what to do, I will absolutely find that.
Trap this arcane at the extraction point. Whatever you do, don't kill him.
Oh, yeah, he's swinging.
Capture complete.
Nothing like a fresh specimen. Alive and kicking.
Yeah, so I mean, there we go. That's there's that one. And also a really good, really cool thing that you can see here. So that's a really good one. So as you can see on my screen there, I had a foot indicator, or you can actually see where there's movement. So there's an enemy on the other side of this. You can actually put your fuse charge on the wall and use that little weird visual icon if you're running it. That's on by default. Pop it through the door and kill any enemies that are in there. Apparently I killed a breacher. So
You're getting the intel we need.
if you have a spare charge and you just don't, if you want to clear out a subzone or the airlock while you know there's a bunch of enemies in there and you just don't want to open it and get the whole like frontal force of that, pop a fuse charge in there. But that's usually like a weird like niche scenario. But if you were also being chased by, you know, like a smash or anything bigger and you run into the airlock to try to save yourself, but you kind of pin yourself in there for the time being, just pop out a fuse charge and kill everything that was pursuing you, and you walk out like it's no big deal. So this one is a nest objective, so if we can find this, I'll show you essentially what it does and kick the anthill, as this is the objective you'll be using there. Again, so every time that a breacher or any of these kind of like little explosive guys blow up, they do alert enemies around them to come over to that explosion. So shooting them in the body will kill them stealthily, so no one else would be alerted. So always go with that if you can. And usually that's one thing that I was actually thinking about, you know, when I was going to be covering over Alibi and stuff, because she has a secondaries that hit a little bit harder that you can usually get yourself like a one-shot kill on enemies like that. And normally when you butt enemies back, they'll kind of set themselves up for, oh man, this is not the good room for this to show this thing off, but essentially use it on enemies that you're able to butt back with your gun, and usually they would be blowing themselves up. And if you're trying to play stealthy, you know, that can alert a bunch of enemies around you. And what I found is having a way harder hitting gun like the PMM that Fuze has, if you run it without a suppressor or even with that thing, you'd still be able to get a kill. But you'll be able to use that or any kind of hard hitting kind of gun like Alibi would have, like the 410 Bailiff or whatever other gun that she had there. You can butt them back and they'll kind of like stumble backwards, exposing the whole like underbelly, and fire at them, and you can kill them with one shot, drop them without alerting anyone else around you. So all around it's really good. So there's a, you know, the nest right there. I can easily just shoot it, but you know, you can want to pop it out, blow it up. So normally like with a nest that has like armor around it and stuff, or like a mutation, this stuff just completely ignores it, so you don't need to worry about that.
Not a nest left. Time for a sample.
Don't know why it does that. They need to fix that bug. So I'm sure you guys see that too. Like every time that you're about to collect a sample, it just kind of tells you no. So as you see there, I was about to grab that recharge ability, but it already recharged my fuse charge. So that's pretty good. But let's go ahead and pop it through here. See if there's anything on the other side.
Stick to
And
one
no, there
word.
was not. Okay,
Improvise
cool.
where you must. Keep moving forward.
Airlock sequence. Subzone transition in effect.
As we're going through, you know, I want to ask you guys, you know, what kind of operator would you want to see like come to the game next? Because oh, actually, I'll wait for him.
Eliminate those hostiles to bait the elite out of hiding.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, you know, what kind of operator would you guys like to see come to the game next? Because the last operator that came here was Sophia for not the Nightmare Fog Crisis event, but it was the spillover event. Unfortunately, I wasn't available at the time to be able to play that one.
A low life Archie.
But so I did miss like the entire event there and had to try to figure out how to get everything. So all the skins and stuff for that event or exclusive skins for that is gone now, so I'm not able to really get that. Well, that's all good. But they complete the Nightmare Fog one. So right now I think they have it in a weird pattern to where every event and every couple months you'll be able to either get one new operator or you would have one new Protean or like boss fight for you to fight there. So you get a little bit more for variety in enemies. And as well as just adding in smaller variants or different variants here, like the Feral Grunts or the Storm Spikers or the Smoke ones or the Smokers and stuff, things like that. They're still in the game normally. So that was actually really cool to see them carry event aliens into here, or special event aliens. Yeah, so I have a bunch of like little ideas if you guys want to see it. It's usually over on like social media or anything. Usually there will be like a Discord that you could join into for like R6 extraction and stuff like that. And that's where I normally go to set up any kind of like ideas that I have and discuss it with a bunch of people. So if you guys ever want to jump over there and you know have any kind of ideas, because they do have a bunch of developers and stuff that set up the whole Discord and they absolutely go through it and read through them. We'll talk on like any kind of subject that you really want to, and I gotta say, like the little bit of the small team that we got here at Ubisoft for at least covering this game is pretty dang good. Like I'm not gonna lie, they're actually really solid on hearing people out here, so works pretty well with us. But say what you will about the actual company, the actual team is not too bad. But of course, you know, they'll make changes on their end that a lot of people were asking for, but they'll also be adding in their own that people weren't really expecting at all. Like the whole Vigil Protean. Like no one was ever expecting to fight Vigil, and he's like the most pain in the butt boss to fight. Like he is way more difficult than others. Because he does so much like little side stuff, it's unbelievable. What are you doing?
I wonder what that elite could have accomplished with its buddies. Yeah, me neither.
Where's the extraction zone? Okay, I was about to say, like, where in the world? Try to hit it.
I'm reloading.
Even though I've played this map hundreds of times, I don't even know where the dang stairs are. There we go. Yeah, I do. Again, yeah, he's absolutely worth doing. Fuze is a bit weird because everyone knows, this is more of a stealth game. I'm going to say, like, it definitely rewards stealth, but you can play in a more loud way, and that's what I normally talk about over my videos and stuff. I don't normally play like other players. It's a bit more of aggressive kind of play. You're able to pull it off just fine. You just have to go about it in a different way that you would normally expect. And Fuze kind of falls on under that category. If you get spotted, you go all out and kind of stuff, but it's in a weird situation to where you have to find a wall first and you can get utility out of it. So people don't really see a big use out of them outside of playing Kick the Anthill, where everything is forced in one spot until you let it rip on with a charge there. So they don't really know how to use them really well. But he's really there just to be doing mostly defense kind of objectives and setting up barricades and things like that to really mess with the AI and stuff. So in a way, he's able to absolutely abuse the actual AI in the game if you can learn how to work around them and see like how they react in certain situations and stuff. But aside from that, guys, there's not really a whole lot left to talk about Fuze. Just let me know what you guys think about him down in the comments. He definitely has a bunch of unique stuff with him, and he definitely is played differently from other operators. There's not really many ops that does exactly what he does better or in any kind of general way. So he's definitely worth putting the time into to rank up as well. Like his actual headgear and uniform doesn't really look too bad either. Like it looks like a really cool looking skull kind of deal, and his uniform looks pretty solid for him being prestige and stuff. So I mean it looks pretty dang solid. So he's not really that bad to rank up at all. So there's not really much left for me to talk about. He has a great loadout and all that. So thank you guys for watching. I'll probably go over Lion or Doc or someone else in a little bit here. We are going to be reaching the end of all the operators for me to cover. Or actually, no, I'll probably be covering IQ next. She has some pretty interesting stuff to that. But yeah, so we're getting to close to the end of covering all the current operators in the game. Now, obviously, every time they release a new operator, I will be on here covering it and talking about what all they do and what makes them special in that kind of sense there, and any kind of hidden details I could find on them that the game doesn't necessarily explain, because there is a couple of them that have hidden details like IQ, and that's going to be the next one I'll be going over. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.